eventually ran away.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I eventually ran away at the age of 15 to the young lady house that I had met in Detroit.
You never really been around drugs?
No.
Things of that nature. So how did you get introduced to the drug game?
Well, the young lady that I had came and stayed with, her moms and their family was...
In the 1980s, the Chambers brothers weren't chasing music dreams. They were stacking millions. 4 brothers from a tiny Arkansas town hit Detroit and flipped the game, running an empire so massive it rattled even the FBI. Their mix of sharp business moves, flashy street-style marketing, and ruthless violence kept them on top like kings of the underground. But every empire eventually crumbles. Larry Marlowe Chambers, born in 1950 in Marianna, Arkansas, to Curtis and Hazel Chambers, was the third of their sons, following Curtis Jr. and Willie Lee. Then came Danny and Billy Joe, better known on the streets as BJ. By 1962, more brothers rolled in, Joe, Otis, and Bernard Chambers. That family wasn't small either. Curtis and Hazel had 16 kids in total, raising them all in a broken-down trailer on their 44-acre farm. Life in Marianna wasn't easy. It was a struggling, mostly black town drowning in poverty, with Lee County ranked as one of the poorest in the whole country. In 1967, Curtis and Hazel tried to carve out stability by opening up the Tin Top Inn, a bar and restaurant right on their land. It quickly became the family's main hangout spot, where their sons plotted their next moves. Larry was the first to make headlines for the wrong reasons. On December 23, 1969, he got arrested for auto theft after stealing 2 cars in Marianna just to joyride with a childhood friend. At the time, Larry had been living in St. Louis with his maternal grandparents and brother Danny, only back in town for the holidays. But by December 31st, he was already facing real charges that hinted at the wild future waiting for him. Larry wasn't about to sit quietly in a cell. He busted out of the Lee County Jail by overpowering a guard who came in just to fix the toilet.
Deliver the drugs to gang salesmen at more than 500 crack houses. They use violence and intimidation to discourage competitors and to keep...
That same night, he hid out in a church, and by morning he jacked the pastor's car, kicking off a wild 2-day armed robbery spree that had the whole county on edge. His luck nearly ran out during a routine traffic stop in Arkansas. When state troopers walked up on his car, Larry pulled a gun, shot one of them, and tore off into the night. By the next morning, he was tracked down, locked up, and slapped with charges of assault with intent to end. The court didn't play. He got 9 years. But Larry, he wasn't built for doing time. Just 5 months in, he slipped out again, only to get tracked down in Phoenix, Arizona. And if that wasn't enough, he pulled off another prison break later, this time by bribing a guard to look the other way. While on the run, he robbed gas stations, boosted a ride, and drove all the way to Pittsburgh before cops finally bagged him in Wynne, Arkansas, after he botched the jewelry store heist. After 6 years behind bars, Larry got out, but he wasn't done with trouble. He linked up with his brother Danny and their boy James Cooper to burglarize a post office in Helena, Arkansas. When cops lifted Danny and James's fingerprints, both of them folded quick and confessed. But Larry, still on parole, refused to say a word. With no criminal past, Danny and James were offered suspended sentences if they testified against Larry. Once Larry caught wind of that deal, he pled guilty right alongside them. Their dad even brought in lawyer Mike Hawk to cover James, who couldn't afford one. But Larry wasn't about to give in easy. He tried to bust out 3 more times while in custody. Eventually, he got 3 years. Yet in 1977, the Arkansas State Supreme Court shocked everyone when they overturned his conviction, all because Larry's own handwritten appeal was so powerful it couldn't be ignored.
In many places, the crack trade has transformed small-time hoodlums into big-time entrepreneurs. Among the most remarkable examples is the notorious Chambers Brothers gang of Detroit. Authorities say the Chambers Brothers who made this home video didn't even bother to count the $1 bills because it took too long.
Should we throw these ones away, man, since we got $500,000?
Well, I tell you what we can do. We can give it to the poor.
While Larry was making headlines, his brother Willie Lee Chambers was walking a different path. He graduated from Lee High School in 1972, spent 2 years in the U.S. Army, and by 1974, he packed up for Detroit, Michigan, where Danny had already settled years earlier. Willie landed steady work as a mail carrier with the U.S. Postal Service, trying to keep things clean, at least for a while. BJ, small in size but with big ambition at just 5'5", followed the family trail to Detroit in 1978, 2 years after their parents' divorce split the household. He left Mariana during his junior year of high school, enrolled at Detroit's Kettering High, and hustled to stay afloat by working as a janitor at Eastern Shoes Company. But BJ's side hustle came with more risk. He started moving marijuana for fellow Lee County native Big Terry Colbert, a man already deep in the game. Danny had introduced BJ to Colbert since they once worked side by side at a Michigan auto plant. After losing his auto job, Colbert opened a convenience store as cover. But in reality, he was already running a marijuana business that pulled in real money. Meanwhile, back in Arkansas, Larry couldn't stay straight. He was caught with stolen guns from a marijuana shop and sent right back to prison. Once released, he turned up the heat, pulling off a spree of jewelry store heists across Arkansas, over 100 in total. His slick move, drilling into ceilings after hours, dropping in like a phantom, and cleaning out entire showcases before sunrise.
What do you feel like the most y'all ever brought in a day?
Well, we had got to a point where we was making at least $250,000 per day, every day.
Damn.
In 1980, BJ's life changed. His girlfriend Niecy gave birth to their son, Billy Chambers Jr. That's when BJ walked away from school and ditched his shoe store gig to push weed full-time. By the next year, Niecy had given him a daughter too, and BJ was locked into the hustle. While he had some adult clientele out in wealthy Grosse Pointe, Michigan, most of his steady customers were Detroit high school kids who couldn't get enough of what he was serving. BJ's hustle was no small change. His drug sales were bringing in between $200 and $400 a day. Meanwhile, Larry couldn't keep himself out of the mix. In September 1981, he and another parolee jacked a money order machine from an Arkansas post office and started flooding the streets with fake orders. By October, he slid into Detroit to link up with Willie and BJ, but his run didn't last. Larry got trapped in a sting. An undercover U.S. postal inspector nabbed him at a Highland Park motel thanks to his own accomplice flipping on him. This time, Larry got slapped with 4 years and shipped to USP Leavenworth, a federal lockup in Kansas. But prison walls didn't stop his grind. Inside, Larry built his own empire. Illegal gambling, extortion rackets, and underground deals, pulling in a reported $50,000 while locked up. A shrink once gave him an IQ test, and he scored 140, borderline genius, using his brains just as much as his brawn. On the outside, BJ was leveling up. In 1982, he took the tricks he'd picked up from Colbert and opened Willie's retail store with his brother on Courchevel and St. Clair. Willie fronted the money from his postal job, while BJ moved weed and heroin right out the back. By January 1983, Willie doubled up, opening a car wash next door, giving the family more cover for the operation. It didn't stop there. Willie soon opened another convenience store on Detroit's Lower East Side, and BJ turned it into a base for his expanding drug trade. When cops raided the spot, he simply flipped it, rebranding it as BJ's Party Store. And when that heat got too heavy, he started buying up cheap houses across the city, flipping them into drug hubs.
Real hotbed. Racism was a real hotbed. Even at one time, one of my brothers was walking up the road. I'm in a little small town called Lee Range, Arkansas.
The crew kept growing. Danny, Joe, David, Jerry Gant, and even Colbert's own brother and son got folded into the empire. BJ even brought in little Terry from Hughes, Arkansas, who just moved to Detroit to work for his pops. Instead, BJ put him on payroll, paying him $400 a week to move marijuana for the family business. BJ wasn't just stacking family around him, he brought in more muscle by recruiting Willie Boogaloo Driscoll and Perry Coleman, both brothers of his girlfriend Niecy. By 1984, BJ was introduced to crack through Coleman, and once he touched that lane, the game changed forever. Crack was exploding in Detroit, and BJ's money shot up fast. What started as $1,000 a week ballooned to $3,000 as demand spread like wildfire. The Chambers brothers quickly locked down a large-scale crack empire on Detroit's Lower East Side, moving weight like no one had ever seen. But the streets bring heat, and in August, BJ found himself in cuffs after he and his brother Joe scrapped with 2 cops who tried pulling him over right in front of his house. Then things got even hotter. On September 1st, undercover cop John Autry bought 3 bags of crack straight from Elaine Coleman Lucas at the Chambers family spot on Gray Street, Just 2 days later, on Labor Day, the hammer dropped. BJ, Danny, cousin Alvin Chambers, and Lucas were all busted when police raided the Gray Street house, seizing over 2,000 crack packs. A second raid went down a week later, September 10th. But this time, no arrests stuck. Still, with the spotlight getting brighter, BJ dipped out of Detroit, retreating to the family farm in Marianna, Arkansas, where he laid low for nearly a year. While he was gone, David Chambers and Jerry Gant tried to keep the operation alive, but it flopped without BJ's leadership. By 1985, BJ stormed back into Detroit and cleaned house, literally. He cut almost every non-family worker, including Driscoll and even Colbert himself.
A guy and his friend was riding a motorcycle, actually deliberately ran over my brother. And nothing was dead, but that was the type of stuff that we could expect.
Instead, BJ handpicked a new crew, Detroit locals Anthony Alexander and Eric Wilkins, plus Marshall Glenn from back home in Marianna. Glenn then recruited more young men from Arkansas, including James McKinney, who took charge of crack houses and ran pickups and drop-offs with military-like precision. With the overhaul complete, BJ expanded like never before, going from 6 crack houses to a jaw-dropping 50 in 1 year. And just as the empire was rising, Larry Chambers walked back into the picture after his prison release on April 29th, setting the stage for the brothers to take Detroit by storm. By July, Larry turned ruthless ambition into muscle. He created the Wrecking Crew, the official enforcement squad of the Chambers empire. He pulled in Arkansas natives Roderick Byrd and William Jackson, forming a deadly trio feared across Detroit for their savage methods. Their reputation wasn't built on rumors, it was earned. In one infamous incident, Larry and his crew unleashed pure brutality on a worker who tried to hustle them by passing off plaster chips as $8 crack rocks. The punishment? They beat him with a lamp, smashed him with a 2x4, even slammed him with a TV set, then poured hot grease all over him. While Larry ruled with fear, BJ played the opposite card. He kept loyalty by spoiling his workers with over-the-top perks. Employees were treated to flashy trips to Las Vegas and Florida, living like kings on BJ's dime. And even with all the chaos around him, Larry stayed unpredictable. Between violence and hustling, he actually enrolled at Wayne State University, studying music history and Spanish like he had one foot in academia and the other in the underworld. At the same time, Larry started dating Detroit teenager Belinda Lumpkin and moved her into the Gray Shot Avenue house he shared with his brother David. But love and textbooks didn't slow down the empire. Demand for cocaine was skyrocketing. Terry Colbert couldn't keep up, so BJ and Larry cut him out and went straight to the source, linking with Sam Curry and Art Derrick through Perry Coleman's connections. Then came the empire's crown jewel. In March 1986, the Chambers brothers bought a 4-story red brick apartment complex at 1350 East Grand Boulevard for $75,000. Larry transformed it into their fortress, the infamous Broadmoor. This was no ordinary building. It was a drug palace. Residents were either forced out or paid off, and David Hard's girlfriend, Patricia Middleton, became Larry's right hand, handling books and cooking for the bar and grill he opened on the first floor. The Broadmoor ran like a factory of vice. On entry, buyers were escorted to specific sections. Powder cocaine moved on the first floor, right beside a porn shop. The second floor was a lounge where customers sat back and smoked. The real madness happened upstairs. Crack flooded out from the 3rd and 4th floors, where prostitutes also operated. The Broadmoor wasn't just a building. It was Detroit's underground empire, wrapped in brick and fireproof money. At the Broadmoor, the Chambers brothers turned drug dealing into a full-blown business empire with perks.
It was just like, I'm done. I'm not going in this field no more, chopping no kites for nobody. You know what I'm saying now? And just took off. By him not having a game plan, just looking at his criminal record, he was doing a lot of break-ins at that time to survive.
To push sales even higher, customers were treated to free tequila shots on the weekends, turning the spot into part trap house, part nightclub. At its peak, this fortress of vice was raking in an estimated $100,000 every single day. Even the youngest Chambers brother, Otis, got pulled into the hustle. While still in high school, he spent his summers working alongside his older brothers in Detroit, getting a first-hand education in the family business. To keep product clean and profits flowing, the brothers ran their own quality control, sending undercover workers to buy crack at random houses to make sure nothing was cut or watered down. Their operation was so organized it looked corporate. Most employees, many fresh out of Marianna, Arkansas, were issued photo ID cards and paid $100 a day, but the money came with strings attached. Workers were on call 24/7, often ditching school to grind out 12-hour shifts in crack houses fortified with chains and barred windows. Inside, strict rules were plastered on the walls like a handbook. No speeding, no flashy chains or sneakers while moving illegal substances or cash, and never carrying illegal substances and money at the same time. Break the rules and you paid fines straight out of your pocket. $50 for blasting loud music on deliveries, $100 for slacking off or ignoring orders, $300 for stealing or using the product, and $500 for even talking business with outsiders. Fear and discipline kept the operation running like a machine. By pulling recruits straight out of their hometown of Marianna, the Chambers brothers built an army of over 150 workers, teen couriers, street dealers, drug cooks, and enforcers, all loyal to the cause.
You say their name, say Chambers looking for you, hey, they bound, they running, they be scared. They will kill you in a minute with no hesitation.
With their system locked down, the Chambers brothers pulled in an estimated $55 million a year. They weren't just hustlers anymore. They were the Cash Money brothers. At their peak, the crew was moving an insane $5 million in crack sales per month. With 500 employees, control over half of Detroit's 200 crack houses, and supply lines feeding another 500 more between 1983 and 1989. The Chambers machine was printing money, averaging a staggering $55 million in yearly profits. And they weren't just satisfied with Detroit. The brothers had their sights set on Flint, Michigan, and Toledo, Ohio, plotting to spread their crack empire like wildfire across the Midwest. With all that cash flowing in, they lived like kings. They scooped up vacation homes in Jamaica and bragged about their wealth on home videos, showing off gold bathroom fixtures and stacks of money piled so high they looked unreal. By February 1986, their empire hit full throttle. Joe Chambers had just come home from serving 2 years in federal prison for stealing food stamps and postal orders. But tragedy struck fast. On March 29th, Joe was ended when a freight train smashed into his car in Marianna. His funeral on April 4th drew most of the organization, with his older brothers rolling up in style, 3 chauffeur-driven limos to watch Otis graduate high school just weeks later. The Chambers name was everywhere, in the streets and at family milestones. But while the brothers celebrated, the feds were plotting. In 1986, the DEA launched Operation No Crack, a full-on battle against the booming crack epidemic. They even set up a hotline, 1-800-NO-CRACK, which lit up with 1,500 tips in the very first month. And the Chambers brothers were already on their radar. By early August, Patricia Middleton, the same woman Larry had trusted as his bookkeeper, flipped and became a confidential informant. On August 25th at 1:30 p.m., police hit hard with 2 simultaneous raids on Chambers properties. 2 months later, betrayal struck again. Little Terry Colbert turned informant too, handing over intel that led straight to a raid on Larry's 2-story home on Albion Street. One crack house raid on Nail Street even uncovered their infamous rule book, later dubbed the Crack Commandments. Still, despite raids, snitches, and mounting police pressure, the Chambers brothers kept the money flowing. To remind everyone who was in charge, Larry threw a flashy New Year's Eve bash, treating his closest associates to a luxury cruise in Jamaica, as if nothing could touch him.
He also had a club down there that was
Correct.
What did they call it? A club or juke joint? What did
They call it a
it?
juke joint, cafe.
On April 24th, 1987, trouble found the youngest Chambers brother, Otis. Around 4 p.m., he and his girlfriend, who didn't even have a license, got pulled over in Hughes, Arkansas, for running a stop sign on their way to Marianna. Cops searched the flashy blue Corvette, which Otis swore he'd just borrowed from a friend. But tucked behind the passenger seat, Police Chief Herbert Neighbors and his partner uncovered a green plastic bag stuffed with $59,624 in cold, hard cash. Both Otis and his girl were hauled to the station, and the IRS swooped in quick to seize the money. By September, the Chambers name was back on blast when a local TV station aired a documentary called All in the Family. The special showed damning home video footage seized from Larry's house. Clips of Larry and his boy MC Poole counting mountains of cash and bragging about their fortune. and another where William Jackson shook a laundry basket literally overflowing with money like it was laundry day. But the empire was already cracking. On September 12th, heartbreak hit when David Chambers died from AIDS-related complications, leaving the family shaken. Then by mid-December, the law came crashing down harder than ever. Members of Larry's feared wrecking crew were snatched up after a federal grand jury unsealed indictments. Just days later, on December 19th, cops raided an apartment on Detroit's East Outer Drive and found Larry himself hiding out in the bathroom. Cocaine was sitting right on the kitchen table, and a gun was tucked in a cabinet above the stove. Branded a flight risk, Larry was denied bail on the spot. Meanwhile, BJ was cornered too. He was arrested at his Beaconsfield Street home in Detroit. By January 31st, 1988, he was caught with a handgun and 7 ounces of cocaine, the final nail after an 18-month investigation.
Willie was kind of known as the one that was kind of getting in trouble in and out of jail. Like,
that was Larry. That was my oldest brother.
Okay,
they called Larry Marlowe.
By February, the Chambers brothers' empire officially collapsed. Detroit police and DEA agents rolled in, seizing 250 guns, 68 vehicles, 6 kilos of cocaine, and more than $1 million in cash and jewelry. The untouchable Cash Money brothers were finally in chains. When the hammer dropped, it came down heavy. 22 members of the Chambers empire were named in a 15-count federal indictment. On February 29, 1988, U.S. Attorney Roy Hayes of the Eastern District of Michigan stepped up to lead the case that would dismantle the so-called Cash Money brothers once and for all. By the time the trial kicked off, 4 defendants had already folded and pled guilty, while 4 more were still on the run. Most of the crew faced a jury, but Willie Lee Chambers stood before a judge alone. The September trial peeled back the curtain on the dark side of the empire. Felicia Gilchrist, just 19 years old, was granted immunity to testify against her former bosses. She admitted she worked 24-hour shifts, selling crack through a hole in the wall like it was fast food. She even confessed that her 14-year-old sister Alicia sometimes took shifts beside her, and that she once brought her own newborn baby to work when the child was only a week old. The testimonies got uglier. Little Terry. Colbert told the court how Otis Chambers had him savagely beaten with a baseball bat and shot in the leg after a heated family argument in July 1987. His drug-dealing career, which had been netting him $3,000 a week, ended that night. Colbert barely survived by leaping out of a window, later receiving treatment at Detroit Receiving Hospital. James McKinney also testified, connecting Marshall Glenn deeper into the organization's operations. And the betrayals didn't stop there. Perry Coleman, once trusted by the Chambers brothers, took the stand for the government too. His reward, a sweet plea deal that slashed his conspiracy sentence from 25 years down to just 5. By October 28, 1988, the walls were closing in on every last member of the Chambers family's empire. The verdict sealed the fate of the empire. All 4 Chambers brothers, along with 5 key members of their crew, were convicted on conspiracy charges. Otis was hit even harder with an additional conviction for cocaine possession, while Larry and BJ took the biggest blows, found guilty of running a continuing criminal enterprise. Even Wilkins and Lumpkin, both underage at the time, were convicted for conspiracy to distribute and possession with intent to move crack and marijuana. Sentencing day, March 25, 1989, was the final nail. Willie Chambers got 21 years and a $350,000 fine. Otis was slammed with 27 years and another $350,000 fine. BJ faced a brutal 45-year sentence and a $500,000 penalty, while Larry, the mastermind, was dealt life in prison and a $250,000 fine. Years later, freedom came for some. Willie walked out in August 2007. BJ followed in December 2010, and Otis came home in November 2011. But Larry? He's still behind bars today, serving life inside USP Terre Haute, a maximum security federal prison in Indiana. A reminder that the Chambers brothers' empire, once dripping in millions, ended in steel bars and concrete walls. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about the rise and fall of the Chambers brothers? Were they criminal masterminds or reckless hustlers who flew too close to the sun? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. See you on the next one.